Okay, big show today, everybody. And we have 5 full This Week in Startups coming to you this week. I'm going to start off with Peloton. Are they undervalued? They have lost 75% or so of their market cap, but their numbers are looking really good. I think Peloton might be a buy, and I'm going to go into the numbers and tell you how I assess that, looking at their subscribers and the value of their company and the lifetime value of their customers. We're going to do a little bit of back of the envelope math so you understand how investors think about these businesses. Then we have an amazing interview with the founder and CEO of Rad Power Bikes. I love e-bikes. I bought 2. This company is like really doing crazy stuff. And we talk about the founding story and why e-bikes are this new magical experience that everybody should try. And by the way, I paid for those bikes and then I invited them on the show. Just so you know, I never accept anything free. There's nothing free. It's always somebody wants to have lunch or wants a favor or an introduction. So I never accept anything free, nor does anybody on the staff. There's no way to get on this program. If you send a PR note here and try to get somebody on the program, it automatically puts your person in the penalty box for like a year or 2. We won't even consider them. So don't send PR requests to This Week in Startups or All In, please. I mean, unless it's like Bill Gates or like a top 100 person, we understand then, like, yes, you can call us if they have a new book coming out. We're going to have the founder of Snowflake on the show on Wednesday, and I'm reading his book right now. It's fantastic. And so, yes, for that level of person, maybe. At the end of the pod, I put this at the end, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about the ending of Secession. Producer Nick is going to pitch me on me being in season 4. He's got a story arc idea. We'll see how that is. We'll put it up the flagpole, see if anybody salutes. And I'm going to recap the season and what I think of this extraordinary piece of art that they created called Secession. So if you haven't seen the final episode, just at the end, know that I'm going to talk about, and there'll be some spoilers. And then at the end of the end of the end, Nick and I had an open-end discussion about All In podcast, and just in the last 10 episodes, it's gone to the top 50 episodes in the world, top 100 podcasts in the world. Something's happened. And we get into how we produced the show and some inside baseball about the last couple of episodes and Nick's strategies around that. And I actually talk about CafeX, one of my investments, which came up during the show. So some inside baseball at the end that you're going to really enjoy, trying to do a little bit more about my life and take you inside the program in detail with some of the producers and principals on the show. Stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Microacquire, the startup acquisition marketplace. Start the right acquisition conversations at your own pace. Get free and instant access to over 100,000 trusted buyers with total anonymity. Say goodbye to brokers and meet your ideal buyer today. Go to trymicroacquire.com/twist. Stripe. Join thousands of successful founders who choose Stripe as their payments platform. Whether you're an online or in-person retailer, software platform, marketplace, or subscription business, visit stripe.com to learn more about how Stripe can support your business today. And Calm for Business can help your employees be their best selves at work. HR and benefit leaders can get a free year of Calm for Business at calm.com/twist.
All right, first up in the news, I've been watching Peloton because I absolutely love this company. And at some point, CNBC asked me, hey, J-Cal, what do you think of Peloton? It was really expensive. They were worth, I think, $30 billion or $40 billion at the time. And I was like, gosh, at $30 billion, if they have 1 million of these connected units or whatever, it's $30,000 per unit per customer. That makes no sense because the lifetime value of the customer is nowhere near $30,000. Even if it was, it still wouldn't make sense. And so I've been watching it like a hawk. And during this recent stock market correction, of course, the stock market, if you zoom out a year, is still at all-time highs, basically, bouncing along the ceiling, as we say. If you imagine a balloon, if people think there's kind of a ceiling, kind of was bouncing the ceiling. And there were some stocks that became meme stocks. Meme stocks where people were explicitly trying to pump and dump or run them up or run amok with them. And the meme stocks were AMC and GameStop. Those have compressed and come back down to earth. And then there were some stocks that were considered pandemic stocks. They were going to just have a huge boom. People got excited about those. You had a little bit of meme-ness to them, a little bit of pandemic thesis. And then you also had more people participating in the stock market thanks to apps like Robinhood. So Peloton was one of those that kind of hit on all three, right? It's a consumer product, so retail investors love it. It also is an absolutely great product. So if you're actually looking at it, in a great business, I think, because they get $40 a month in subscription, which is $500 a year in pure profit from the software subscription, put aside the hardware, which if they broke even on it, having millions of people pay you $500 a year is pretty great business, isn't it? Anyway, they peaked at a $47 billion market cap. The price has compressed since then. And we'll show you a couple of charts here if you're watching the YouTube channel. If you're listening, the chart is just showing the peak. All right, so Peloton on December 24th, 2020, Christmas, makes sense. Everybody was buying Pelotons for folks. Hit an all-time market cap. I think the peak stock price of, $162 a share. Pretty amazing. Since that time, they've lost a massive amount of value. They're down at 13 now. So they're roughly a third, right? Or quarter, right? 4 times 13 would be 26 times 2, 52. So they're trading about 25% of where they were. And just last week, there was this crazy moment. Sex and the City, and this will just be a mini spoiler alert, has a sequel. So if you really care about Sex and the City, fast forward 90 seconds, I'll be done talking about it. On the show, Just Like That, which is the sequel to Sex and the City, Mr. Big, Chris Noth, famous for being on Law & Order, great actor, at least when he was on Law & Order, has a heart attack after using his Peloton, and the stock dropped like 10% the next day, which makes no sense. My gosh, it's fiction, and it's like nobody even watches this show. I think it's like a very minor show. And I watched it. It was kind of terrible, I'll be honest. I was never a huge fan of that show. That might not be the demographic. So this week, Peloton came back with their own ad to counter this. So just in, sort of news around Peloton, I want to get back to the numbers and answer the question, is it undervalued now? Peloton was clearly overvalued. Now is it undervalued? And we'll have a little discussion about that based on some numbers. But here's a 37-second comeback ad that Peloton did really quick with Chris Noth, basically saying he's not dead. I'll see you on the other side of 37 seconds.
To new beginnings.
To new beginnings. You look great.
Well, I feel great. Shall we take another ride? Life's too short not to.
And just like that, the world was reminded that regular cycling stimulates and improves your heart, lungs, and circulation, reducing your risk of cardiovascular diseases. Cycling strengthens your heart muscles, lowers resting pulse, and reduces blood fat levels. He's alive.
Is that Ryan Reynolds, the voiceover? I think it is. Anyway, during this time, overall revenue has increased 6%, but its connected fitness subscriptions have nearly doubled from 1.3 to $2.5 million. So, in other words, when you look at the chart of their actual business, pretty amazing. Just in Q2 of 2020, they had 712 connected fitness subscriptions. Then a year later, they had 1.6. So they more than 2.5 times. And now they have 2.492, so almost 2.5. We'll give them the roundup there. So this is a really great looking chart. If you look at their quarterly revenue, it's come down. This is, I think, because of supply chain issues, because a part of their revenue is buying of the bicycles and the tread. And then part of it is the software subscription that you have. Now, in order to really use a Peloton, you have to have a software subscription. You can theoretically use it, but you can't take the classes. It doesn't record your data. So they basically put a gun to your head. I think it's kind of lame, actually, but whatever. It's such a great product that most people are not comparing this to a piece of gym equipment. They're comparing it to a gym membership. And for $40 a month, each of these spin classes, I think, my understanding is $25 to $40, depending on what city you're in, is what a spin class costs. So if you go to about one class a month, maybe the two, you're in the black already. And the software is amazing and it's super convenient. So it is much better for you. So if you look at the mix of revenue, that's the key here. I don't like the hardware revenue. Obviously, we like the software revenue because the subscription revenue, I think, is 100% profit. In the same quarter last year, 2020, they had $757 million in revenue. $600 million of that came from the bikes, $156 million from subscriptions. So obviously, overwhelming majority was selling the bikes and the treads. The tread is their fancy word for a treadmill. In their most recent quarter, they earned $304 million from subscriptions. So they doubled subscriptions a year later, and they made $500 million, a little bit less, selling hardware. I think that it might be they have some supply issues. They were having a hard time keeping them in stock. So what we really want to look at here is Peloton's ratio, because when you're buying a company or a stock, whether I'm doing it at an early stage or you're doing it as a public investor, you try to value the business in relation to their sales, their customers, lifetime value, some other metric. So if you look at their ratios, they were at $35,000 per subscriber at the peak. In other words, if you took the value of the company, $47 billion, the number of subscribers was like 35, $1,000. And that has plummeted now. And that was last December. Now, this December, they're at $5,000 per subscriber. Well, what's the lifetime value of a Peloton subscriber? I just described before. It's $500 per year to have this offer, about $40 a month, so 480. So we'll just round that up to 500 for back of the envelope math time. So if somebody stays with the product for 10 years, that's pretty amazing, right? Microacquire is a startup acquisition marketplace that cuts out everyone in the middle. If you're a founder and you're looking to sell your startup, Microacquire is free for you. And it's private, and there are no intermediaries there. The way Microacquire makes money is they charge people like me who might want to buy companies or other larger companies a membership fee to review the deals. And they've already helped hundreds of startups get acquired. They've facilitated hundreds of millions of dollars in closed deals. This is a great idea. I mean, it's like Airbnb or eBay for startups in M&A. They have over 100,000 buyers, including myself, on the platform. Thousands of startups are currently listed for sale, and they've had, again, hundreds of successful acquisitions. You get free instant access to those 100,000 trusted buyers. This is a closed marketplace. You have to be verified to get into it. And on the other side of the marketplace, as I said, the buyers just pay $290 a year, which is nothing. I mean, it's not even what you spent on dinner last night, or forget about it. A closing dinner, when you close one of these deals, is like $1,000 a person. You ever go to a closing dinner? Like, part of the whole thing is the closing dinner. You spend $1,000 on wine per person. You have this crazy $10,000 dinner to celebrate. This is $290. It's like the cost of the appetizers. Okay, folks? If you're a buyer, you're being negligent not being on this platform. Microacquire helps startups find buyers. It's as simple as that. And they'll help you start conversations that can lead to an acquisition in just 30 days for free at try.microacquire.com/twist. Try.microacquire.com/TWIST. One last time, try.microacquire.com/twist. And that subscriber ratio we just did only doesn't count their digital only subscribers, because they do have people who just pay for their digital only subscription. And that digital only subscription doesn't include their hardware. That's for people who want to use their own bike. So if you go on Amazon, you can see people selling bikes with iPads. If you have your own bike, you can have a Peloton subscription and just use your own bike. So they don't want people who already had bikes to get left out. But it doesn't do things like change the speed of the bike, or, it's just not as integrated, right? They don't have the data from the bike getting pumped into their system. And Peloton lists its annual retention at 92%, which is extraordinary, which is 8% churn. So if you just do some back of the envelope math here, this is a chart we made internally. So, there could be errors in it, and obviously make your own investment decisions. But I like to just make some quick charts. So if you were to look at their subs, connected fitness and digital subscribers, at their current market cap, they're worth $12,000 if you blended those two together. In the second column, we're looking at annual subscription costs, $468 for connected, digital only $228. If you take their lifetime value based on the projected average subscriber's lifetime, then you would be looking at, if you just think that they will stick with the product for 10 years, the 10-year lifetime value is something like $13,000. So that's like 1 times or so, or 1.5 times if you think they stick around for 6 years. 1 to 1.5 times the value of the company. In other words, the company, if you take how much money they're going to make just from the current subscribers, is worth what those subscribers are worth. So I haven't made a move here. I don't buy individual stocks, but I'm going to keep my eye on Peloton, because it looks like they are suffering through just some real negativity. I do think it's a takeout target. Apple should buy this. I've been saying that for years. It always has felt like the Apple of this space, and Apple doesn't like to buy things. So who knows if they'll ever come out with their own connected fitness. But there are other brands like Nike or other companies that might want to own this, and Amazon I could see wanting to own this, because it would play well into your Amazon Prime subscription. Imagine you bought your Peloton equipment, and if you had Amazon Prime, the subscription was just included, and my Lord, it could be a great business. So I love the business. I thought this would be an interesting way to look at it. So when things compress and you have these valuation compressions, maybe sometimes some companies will get valued at less. I don't know how much cash they have. You could take the cash out of their valuation and then do this. You could give them some value for the equity of their brand. A lot of different ways to look at these things. But I thought I would take a moment and say, is Peloton a buy right now? I kind of don't like to buy equities. I just put my stuff into new companies. But I might make a bet here. I'm thinking about making a bet. You tell me and reply to me with your best use case or your best case for or against Peloton on Twitter. I'm at Jason. So just reply to me and just tell me if you think my math is off or whatever. And we'll do a little tweet storm on the TWI one. But I believe in the company. And I think they could have 3 or 4 more products. I think they should buy Hydro. I have a Hydro rowing machine. I barely use it. But I think the Hydro is a great product. And they basically copied the entire Peloton UI anyway. So that would integrate seamlessly. And then there's Mira and there's Tonal. All these things should be one subscription. And then you can use them at other locations. That's kind of the best part of the Tonal is when I was at the proper hotel in Austin, I took a picture, like a QR code on the Tonal, and it just let me right in. And I could have all my account and workouts there, and I could track my workout, and then it times out after 5 minutes and logs you out, and the next person can use it, or you can just hit log out. Pretty cool experience, I have to say. All right. I'm really excited about our next guest on the program, who decided he would go into one of the most difficult categories any entrepreneur can take on. Yes, he's building electric bikes. And you say to me, hey, would you ever invest in an electric bike company? Hardware is hard. And you're up against China and the race to the bottom. Well, the only way to win in hardware is to make a product that is so transcendent, amazing, detailed, and made with such a level of obsession that it can't be copied and the brand actually becomes worth something to consumers. Well, Mike Radenbaugh is the founder and CEO of a company you've heard me talk about on social media. It's called Rad Power Bikes, and they make kick-ass electric bikes that are like nothing you've ever tried. You can go visit them at radpowerbikes.com. How do I know this? Well, I tweeted after having driven e-bikes when I was in Italy and in Miami, and over the past couple of years, hacked together e-bikes on the playa at Burning Man. Electric bikes are a different experience. You will take an electric bicycle on missions that you would never take a regular bicycle. And I would say my Rad Power Bike missions tend to be the ones I would use my car. In other words, I am not wearing a bunch of sports clothes. I'm wearing regular civilian clothes. And I want to get a little bit of exercise, but I also want to have the optionality to go a little bit faster without sweating and to get to my destination quicker and easier and to get up and down the giant crazy hills that we face in the Bay Area. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Jason, thanks. That was a radical intro.
It's pretty rad. You and I met online because I tweeted what's the best electric bike to get, and I got flooded with responses. But the one that came over and over again was people who were absolutely obsessed with the Rad Power Bike. I bought the best one, and then I bought the Rad Wagon. I don't know what the name of the first one I bought was. What's the top of the line Rad bike?
I think you had the Rad Rover first,
I had
or
the Rad Rover.
Runner?
The Rad Runner, yeah, with the big flat seat on the back that you can have another person sit on with the pegs. And so the bikes on an inspirational level, they don't look like touring bikes. They don't look like mountain bikes. They have big chunky tires. What is the aesthetic of this bike called? Is there a name for this category of bike that you've perfected?
The e-bikes that Rad popularized was first the direct-to-consumer model.
Okay.
So that's a really big part of our history. The second part was this e-bikes that are, we say built for everything and priced for everyone. And that built for everything, what we take that internally to mean is that they're built to replace car trips. They're built to replace your getting from point A to point B. So they don't look like a bicycle with an electric motor put onto them. They look like something quite a bit different. And so the bike that you got, the Rad Runner, as an example, that's what we call a utility bike. And so you can carry groceries on it. You can take your kids to school. You can head out on date night. You can commute to work on it. And it's got tons of accessories that allow you to store stuff on it, and big locks and big tires and puncture resistant tires.
What's the point of the giant chunky tires that feel more like a motorcycle or a moped? Because these aesthetically will look more like a moped, kind of, which we don't have really here in the United States, but you do see in Europe quite often. What's the point of those big chunky tires on a utilitarian basis?
Well, all along, fat tires are a breakthrough for the e-bike category because they make people look at the category differently. It feels more like a piece of transportation because it can go over train tracks and rough roads, and it can travel in inclement weather, and it's super comfortable. Doesn't get flat tires as easily, and it just looks freaking cool. So I think it catches a lot of people's attention and like brings them into the category the way that a regular bike by appearance maybe wouldn't.
Does that fat tire make it easier to ride and more stable because it has more surface area on the street? Is that a part of this?
Most of our bikes have suspension forks as well, so they have the actual pneumatic suspension. But then the tires help with all the smaller bumps in the road. And so then you just have what's like a really cushy ride when you got that combination of suspension forks plus big tires. So that's really the double whammy. And then it just makes them more versatile. You can take them on more types of paths. And the reason we did fat tires originally was that just didn't exist. That was something that we pioneered, and we did it because bike infrastructure was not very good. And we wanted to overcome that through product design.
And if you drive them over grass like I do, or I have gravel in a driveway, it just eats that. Just go right through it. Boom. And that is a nice part of it. Does make it feel more stable. If you're a startup founder, early decisions can be the difference between success and failure. And one decision that thousands of successful founders have made is choosing Stripe as their payments platform. We all know Stripe. CEO Patrick Paulson was on episode 723 back in April of 2017. Over the past decade, Stripe has made processing payments simple and borderless. That's what you need to know. Simple, borderless, because the world is complex and there are many regions for you to do work in, and you want to make it simple. That's why you make the foundational decision in your startup to use Stripe. They've enabled businesses like Shopify, Postmates, and Kickstarter. You may have heard of those three incredibly successful companies. Well, they empowered them to grow revenue and expand to new markets quickly. Kickstarter is the perfect example because they accept payments from 195 countries thanks to Stripe. And Postmates scaled their revenue to over 70 million after increasing payment authorization rates. Stripe has engineered the world's most powerful and easy-to-use API so you can get up and running in minutes, not days. And you can free up your employees to focus on other parts of your business, like acquiring new customers or hiring more people. If you're looking for a no-code solution, well, I got good news for you. Stripe recently launched the brilliant Payment Links. This generates a link that you can share with your customers to get paid fast. There's no coding required because we're moving to a no-code world. We all know that. People are building all these great businesses with all these SaaS tools. Well, Stripe is getting in the game now. They got payment links. You got to check it out. I want you to visit stripe.com to learn more about how Stripe can support your business, and it supports all the businesses in my portfolio, and people love it. Whether you're an online or in-person retailer, SaaS platform, or a marketplace, head to stripe.com to get started today. Now, in terms of the ride, this is what people don't understand about the ride. You can ride it essentially in two different ways. There is a literal throttle on the right hand, and you can twist it, and power will be sent to the tires, and you will zip along at up to about 24 miles an hour, depending on if you unlock. You can do a little unlock trick I read online, and I think you cap it at 20 miles per hour on the bikes, and then you can unlock it if you choose to and get up to 24. Am I ballpark correct?
Yeah, the federal limit's 20 miles an hour. So everything's 20 miles an hour at Rad, and we have 750 watts of power. So that's another thing we popularized. Throttles, like you're talking about. Throttles didn't exist before Rad in a big way. And so that was something we popularized. And the other thing was 750 watts of power, which is the federal legal limit in the United States. And that amount of power empowers you to go places you just normally wouldn't. You were talking about climbing hills before we jumped on today with the bikes, and it's the great equalizer. It flattens hills, even steep ones.
Yeah, when I drive up hills, I find like even the steepest of hills, it can eat the hill at 8 or 9 miles an hour at a pretty hard vertical. And these weigh more because they've got the battery, they've got the chunky tires. Or if you like to, you can pedal. And if you pedal, it has gear shifters like a regular bike might. And depending on the gear shifter, it's easier or harder. And then there's a second setting, 1 through 5, which is how much energy gets put into each pedal. So when you're on 1, you feel like you're riding a normal bicycle, but with just a little bit of assist. When you're on 5, you do 1 rotation and it's going to push you an extra, I would say 5 miles an hour or something. So if you're going 5, you're going to go 10. If you're going 10, you're going to go 15. Am I about ballpark right about how the pedal assist works?
You got it exactly right. And so our bikes are designed to be throttle assisted when you want to just go from point A to point B and don't break a sweat. And maybe you don't even want to pedal that day and you just want to cruise. Yeah. And then there's also the pedal assist side. And that's one of the reasons why our product regularly gets compared to sort of an iPhone moment, where it's this device that people don't really expect, but all of a sudden it covers all these different applications in your life, and it becomes this like necessary daily tool. Not just for transportation, like for you to take your kids to school, take them to the ice cream store, and do it without having to get in a 6,000 pound vehicle for to go pick up one ice cream cone.
And yeah, some of my favorite accessories, the one I have that is just absolutely amazing is it's a cage that goes on the back. The back can either have a flat seat, which could arguably fit 2 kids, but my 11-year-old will go on those. There's nice pegs, so she can put her feet on the pegs and feel nice and safe. You have put plastic over the tire, so there's no chance of a person's, jeans getting caught in there. It's very well thought through. So you can sit on the back, great. But this one has a cage. The cage has double bars on each side. So there's 2 bars on each side. If you sit in there, you can also use the pegs. You could put a 5-year-old in there, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. My 11-year-old figured out a way to turn sideways and actually get in there. Then they hold the bars on the inside, and then there's an outside bar, which is like this very rigid cage that I'm assuming is for safety if the bike were to fall over. Kids wearing helmets, if they were holding the inside bars, and we have to talk about safety when we're talking about bikes, those would hit the ground first. Is that made for safety? Is that the goal of that cage? What do you call that cage, that kid cage?
Yeah, we call that the caboose. We gave it a fun, friendly name. And and so within there, you can put child seats, like you said, or you can put sort of seats for younger children. And we just released a new accessory, which we got to get you, Jason. And I was going to say it's a good accessory for Seattle winter or San Francisco summers, and it's a cover that goes over that cage for the winter, so it completely encloses the child passengers from rain and snow. And so we've seen customers in North Dakota using it in the in tough winters there. And we also just launched some bar mitts that go over the handlebars and keep your hands nice and toasty in the winter.
I'm looking at it right here. It's called the Conestoga.
Yeah, the Conestoga cover. Yeah,
Conestoga cover. Yeah. Wow, that is brilliant. So you get a little wind protection, etc. While you have that caboose. But the caboose is for safety, yeah? Like if kids are on this, that's a natural concern of parents. In some way that would act as a safety mechanism.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, and then the child seat itself encloses the kid. And then we also sell helmets across the website there. And like I said, all of our bikes go 20 miles an hour. They fit within the federal definition of a bicycle and an e-bike. And so they're very safe to operate. And like these big tires and big brakes, everything's designed to welcome people that would not traditionally cycle into this e-bike movement that's happening. So you should think of our products a lot more like a piece of consumer electronics than you would a bicycle.
It is as you're saying, this iPhone kind of moment when you ride an e-bike for the first time, whether it's Rad or any of them, the sense of joy is very much, because I used to ride a Vespa, like a scooter when I lived in Manhattan, and I loved that experience. And every time I go to Europe, I will rent a Vespa. I love the 30 miles an hour zipping around. It's the right speed without having the windshield and everything around you. You could just enjoy a city or the countryside. And this feels very similar, I have to say, which is it's kind of like a nice speed to go. 20 miles an hour. If you're going downhill, maybe hit 25. I've hit 30 on it. I slow it down at that. But these are capable of going much faster. Not your bike, but e-bikes are capable of going much faster. I've looked online. There are people who have ones that go 30, 40, and 50 miles an hour. Let's talk about the regulatory framework of where these sit, and then the different classes of bikes, and then where we think they're going to go, because people seem to be trying to figure out how to adopt to a world where some bicyclists are going 10 miles an hour and some are electric. I see some bike paths say no electric. Other ones don't seem to care. I don't know why you would care if it was electric or not, but let's talk about the regulatory environment in the United States now of how these things are classified.
Well, it's really not that complicated now after passing some great model legislation in the last few years. So there's a 3-class system for e-bikes now that's federal in the federal law in a bunch of states as well. And so it's e-bikes that are limited to 20 miles an hour and 750 watts of power, like a Rad Power bike, can be used in almost all normal bike lane sort of interurban trails systems. And it can vary a little bit from city to city. And, but no, generally e-bikes are now federally classified, and it's a lot less confusing. I think what you might be referring to is also just scooter and bike share, which is not what Rad Power Bikes does. We sell and service. We offer a solution to consumers that want to own the bike and accessorize it the same way you've kind of described you've done it for you and your family. So I think a lot more of the legislation challenges and the headwinds are on the share industry, where they've had a rocky 5 years, so to speak.
I mean, the bike sharing has transformed cities. They're absolutely amazing. However, people are adjusting to more bikes being around. Americans are used to walking or cars. And we just have to reset everybody's expectation here to be like the Nordics, Germany, and China, where when you pull up to a red light, there's more bikes than cars waiting for the light to change, correct?
Yes. And hey, it's happening fast here. Electric bikes outsold electric cars in the United States last year 2-1.
That makes sense.
So it's coming fast, and luckily the legislation's already really cemented and in support of what we think's the right speed, the right power, the right sort of use and application. Of course, there's more we want to do to make e-bikes part of everyday life and in legislation, and that's what our government affairs team works on primarily.
So there are e-bike classes 1, 2, and 3, 20 miles per hour for the first two, 25 for the second. E-bike class 1 is pedal assist. Number 2 means you could have a throttle. And then 3 is a throttle and going up to 25 miles per hour, correct? Broad strokes.
3 is up to 28 miles per hour in class 3, but you don't have a throttle. Yeah. And there's no throttle in class 3. And so we really believe that the throttle is a huge unlock for application. Because like you said, sometimes you want that Vespa experience. Like a weird application, but sometimes I like load my panniers up and I still have a bag coming from the grocery store and I can put it between my knees and then throttle home. So it's
you have a big meal and you're full and you're like, I don't want to puke here and I need a little bit of electrical. I'll just glide.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great for after Thanksgiving dinner. That's for sure.
For sure. And then of course there's mopeds, and those come in A, B, and C classes, 20, 30, 40 miles per hour. They look at the CCs instead of the watts. I think it's 49 CC. And then you need a driver's license for the first two categories. Once you get up to 40 miles per hour on a Vespa or more, you're going to need that motorcycle license. Business leaders know that healthy and happy employees create successful companies, no matter what the industry. Calm for Business is going to help your employees be their best selves at work, even as the end of year deadlines approach. Calm wants to help kickstart your mental well-being initiatives, like empowering your employees to stress less, to help them rest better, and to build that resilience, that mental resilience that you need to just come to work and crush it every day as we finish 2021 strong. Calm has a library of specifically designed content that includes lo-fi music playlists, quick breathing break, guided meditation. They even have programs tailored for mental health and productivity, like their Mindfulness at Work series. It's exceptional. And hundreds of soothing sleep stories, which I use with my kids and myself to put myself to bed. You're going to be tight if you get a good night's sleep. Millions of employees at over 600 companies like LinkedIn and Universal Studios, they use Calm for Business. And this shows your employees that you love them and you care for them and that you recognize that mental health is important. We all know it is. But how do you show it to your employees? Well, you show it to your employees by going to calm.com/twist right now. Calm for Business is offering a free 1-year subscription for HR and benefit leaders at calm.com/twist. That's right. I'm not kidding. A free year of Calm for HR and benefit leaders so you can experience what Calm can do for you and your company every day. So get started today, calm.com/TWIST, and get that free full year subscription. So there is an overlap occurring here that you don't participate in yet, which I'll call e-bike class 4. They operate like mopeds, right? They require a driver's license and they go over 30 miles an hour. You don't participate in that yet? And are you planning on it?
No, we really believe that 20 mile an hour top speed is sufficient for the masses. And today Rad's customers are about 1/3 rural, about 1/3 urban, and about 1/3 suburban. And so it's already something that's resonating really broadly geographically. Lots of socioeconomic sort of spread in that too. People from sort of all walks of life are buying and using our products. So no, we think we're there. We think it's the right sort of speed, the right amount of power. So these higher power applications, there's just a smaller grouping of of needs. So for example, 70% of trips in the United States are under 10 miles. 60% are under 6 miles. So most people aren't traveling that far for their average sort of daily applications. So like super high top speeds, we don't think it's responsible or makes a lot of sense. And
people are going on a Vespa. Great. I mean, going on a Vespa, which has a similar tire structure, it's just a slightly different type of helmet, right? You have to wear a motorcycle helmet. But those going 35 miles per hour allow you to be in traffic that's going 35 miles per hour. So that's the justification, I think, for Rad making this class of vehicle. because there might be people who are doing that 10 miles, but they have 35-mile roads. The roads I'm on are typically 15 to 25 miles per hour. So when you're riding a rad bike, you can ride like a car in the middle of the lane, and the person behind you can STF you, shut the frack up, if they don't like it, because you're going the speed limit. But the only problem I have is sometimes I will go onto a street that starts to hit that 35. It would be nice to go 35. Sometimes I can get my Rad Power Bike up to 30. But
Jason, I kind of compared to this like a gaming PC versus a regular PC. It's like, there's a small group that could really benefit from that, but we're focused on e-bikes for the masses. And I think you're right. At 20 miles an hour, you spend a lot less time interacting with cars because you're traveling more like the speed of traffic. So that's what we found to really be the sweet spot.
Yeah, there's a 40-mile bike. Vintage Cycle has a 36-mile one. And there's some other people making them. A nice Super 73, which makes, I guess they're the closest competitor to you. They, I think, are making some that are bigger. But I see some cops now have ones that go 50, 60 miles an hour. I think that's super interesting. A cop bike that goes 50 or 60.
Watch out.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if you're trying to evade a cop on foot, or on a bicycle, and their bike can go 50. That's pretty dope. Okay, so most people, you decided to go direct to consumer. I think that's brilliant. When you get the bike, it comes in a nice box. You have to put it together. It's not that hard to put together. My assistant put one together. She's never put a bicycle together, so she was literally able to do it. She's not technical, but she's not a bicycle mechanic. But a lot of people like to go to a dealer and try things out. So talk to me on a business level about this decision to go direct versus having a dealer network, and then also support, because one of the pieces I got for one of my bikes was broken. I call customer support. You guys are super busy. We were able to eventually get it worked out. And you had, I guess, a street team in the Bay Area that will come help you. So talk about that challenge, because you're dealing with physical real world product. They can get damaged, like what happened to me. One of the bikes got damaged in shipping, which, it's going to happen at some point to somebody. But the decision to not go through the retail channel and go direct, right, and getting these things serviced, which is super important.
No, great questions, Jason. Well, we think of you as almost like an early adopter. So you joined when we probably only had 50,000 or 100,000 customers. We're now over 350,000 customers.
Wow.
We'll add more than 100,000 in just the second half of 2021 alone. We'll end the year at over 700 employees in the company. And we have 5 retail stores now. We'll more than double that next year. We have 22.
Oh, you have your own retail stores?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, so you're taking like a Tesla approach to it, having a showroom kind of thing?
Yeah, we have our showrooms are doing really well at welcoming.
Where are the 5? What cities did you pick to start?
San Diego, Seattle,
Beautiful.
Vancouver. We just opened a brand new location in Berkeley, California, right down the road from you.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's probably who helped me out. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. And then we have a retail store in Utrecht in the Netherlands as well. And so we'll be expanding all over the East Coast, more stores along the West Coast, more stores in the Rockies, all along there. So Rad customers have the ability to buy online and ship directly to doorstep, or they can buy online and pick our Rad mobile service, which will bring the bike to their house, white glove delivery, and all spick and span. Or they can come to our Rad retail stores and have direct to consumer pricing.
You charge a little extra for the VIP service to build it? What does it cost to have them come and put it together for you? $100, $200?
Yeah, right between there. Yeah, depending on location.
I just guessed it. Wow.
So yeah, and so we find those customers love that value added service to have one of our mechanics do the final assembly process. However, before we had all these stores and mobile service operations, we had hundreds of thousands of customers that buy the bike, ship direct to doorstep, and assemble it themselves. And we find that it's a fun process for people. You put the front wheel on, you put the pedals on, a few more little pieces, and away you go after kind of a quick safety check on the bike. So yeah, this was something we faced right away out of the gate. Was okay, we want to make e-bikes accessible. How do we do it? And a big part of that's pricing. And so our bikes are priced between just under $1,000 to $1,900, and those bikes are of a quality like you've experienced that compares to bikes in the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 range, because you're going direct from Rad, and we have a lot more.
That was the thing I was delighted by, because listen, I'm price insensitive at this point in my career, but I did look at it and I was like, wait a second, these clowns want $4,000 or $5,000 for an electric bike. It doesn't have any of the accessories, and your bike matches it on specs or bets it on specs. and yours are 1,500 to 2,000. I bought that top end, obviously. Well, how do you do that? Is it because you go direct and you don't have to sell it to a bike store, which then is looking to mark it up 100%? Is that the savings? Is the bike stores are marking these things up 50, 100%?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers in there when you buy a traditional e-bike. But maybe more importantly is we've just designed our whole business vertically. And so we own last mile through our retail stores and mobile service operations, or vertically integrating into manufacturing. So when you buy from Rad, we have designed and engineered everything, and we own all the tooling for it, and we produce it in 6 countries now. 6 different countries we produce our products. So it's just a very different experience. I think it's more onesie twosie with the traditional bike companies. And I would think of Rad, frankly, that 700 people or so at Rad, we look a lot more like a consumer electronics brand, a lot more like some of your favorite consumer brands, and just the way we've built the company. And so that shows up in the pricing, and it shows up in the quality, and it shows up in the sort of revolutionary nature of the products. Like we don't want to launch anything that's not going to create a dinner table conversation with you and your friends. Yeah. So
people are, everywhere I take the bike, it reminds me of when I had the 16th Tesla Roadster ever made. I mean, it's just literally, I'll park it at a restaurant. I'll take my 2 daughters off. We go eat Greek food, and 5 people walk around the bike and they ask questions. What is it? How does it work? I'm like, it's got the name on the side. You could Google it, folks. But I am answering a lot of questions. When you charge $100, $200 to have the install done, the white glove service, that's break even, or you lose money on that at best, right? Like you're not even, you got to send somebody out. That takes 2 hours. Person's got to get paid well. It's hard to find people today. They're mechanics.
Well, because we push a lot of volume through our system. And so we have positive contribution margin in a lot of these sort of white glove channels for Rad, like our stores. And, I'd say there's when you can drive volume and you can deliver value to the customer, when you have those kind of 2 things happening, then sales happen at Rad a lot by word of mouth. And so we save a lot on marketing costs. And so Rad has been sort of a largely break-even business as we reinvest into growth and scale.
And just so everybody knows, I never accept any free products. So when you said you had to send me something out, that's incredibly gracious of you. I will buy it myself. I bought both bikes, and you did help me with the customer support. I appreciate that. When the control panel on it, there's a little control panel on there, like a little LCD kind of thing where you do the settings. That I think you buy from somebody else currently. That's somebody else's display, because I've seen it on other bikes, I think.
As an early adopter, you had some products where there was a mix of off-the-shelf parts and Rad engineered parts. And so every new iteration that we come out with, for example, today we're on the Rad Rover version 6 that just launched about 3 months ago. And so that's a completely new display and user interface. Cool. And so that one's all engineered in-house and tooled in-house. So you'll start to see us go to 100% on everything. And
I'd say the one you have now on the old ones is kind of janky. It's like not user friendly. It takes a little. It's not difficult to use, but I'm always like, where's the information? And I was wondering about that. And then I was also wondering, I see one of the main selling points of some other bikes is there's a built-in GPS and a built-in lock from your smartphone. You do have a key on yours that locks it, but you don't have GPS. And I think you can take it and ride it even if it is locked, or when I lock it on mine, is it incapable of being ridden? Yeah,
it's turned off when you
the power's off, but people can still ride it like a pedal bike. Or walk
they
it like
could,
a pedal.
But as long as you have the bike locked up, then you're going to be just fine. And your comment about the display on your current model, your prior year model year, a lot of feedback we got from our customers was that the display buttons were a little too small to be used with bigger hands, especially when you have gloves on. And so the new displays have glove friendly sort of larger button display units.
That's great.
So we're always listening to the customer and always sort of implementing change as we roll out new revolutions of Rad.
Okay, so now what about the GPS thing, and then making it so, because I thought this would be like a really easy thing for you to do. I think when I'm on my control panel, or I should have an app, I should be able to connect to the bike and lock the bike remotely. And when I lock it remotely, you can't use the wheels. The screen gets locked, and I have GPS because, listen, bike theft, sadly, is something we all have to live with. Why no GPS? I'm putting like air tags on my bike, hiding them under the seat kind of situation, but seems to me like putting GPS on this would cost $100, and then you could get a whisper net or a GPS drippy service for like whatever it is, $25 a year, I think is what they would do, $2 a month, $3 a month, and you could just charge us $150 on top of the bike to have that feature. Where are you at with that?
You spend a lot of time with folks in startups and scale ups and companies doing hyper growth, and Rad's been growing like crazy. And as you can imagine, it's all about prioritization. And so early on, it's what is the customer's, like, what's the highest and best value for the customer? So we apply a value innovation lens. And so that's why we don't have connectivity today. If Rad does connectivity in the future, maybe I could be on in a future episode to talk about that.
I'll promote that too.
It's going to be something.
You're definitely going to add connectivity. I mean, people want to know where their bike is, right? I mean, that's like a no-brainer.
If we do that, it's going to be something that we've spent years on, and it's not just an app for the sake of an app. It's not just connectivity for connectivity's sake. It's something that's really driven by our first mover insights. It's driven by that 350,000+ customers we have today, and user studies. And so that's why we wanted to focus on a really great, super scalable, fundamental product, and then fold in new features and accessories. We launched 40 accessories this year, right, for our products. So like the engine is turning. The motor.
The one I really like that I'm not sure if I'm going to get is my Rad Power Bikes have a nice pass through for your legs. In other words, you don't have to lift your leg over to get on the bike like a Vespa. You pick your foot a couple of inches, maybe it's 12 inches off the ground or 14 inches, and your leg just slides across and you're on the bike. However, you make a beautiful black plastic case that can slide into that space and become a giant cavernous storage space that looks like it can hold some groceries, your jacket, your laptop, whatever, and it locks nice. So it kind of kills one part of functionality, but it adds another. What's that thing called? And what are your most popular accessories today?
That accessory is called the center console.
Okay, makes sense.
And what we have people putting 12 packs in there of soda, of course, and
yes, of course.
Small dogs, like will park their small dog in there and kind of take it
not
from
close it. They leave it open with a small dog in there.
Yeah, so it's got an open top that you can leave open, so your dog's head sticks out of the top.
You can take the top off and leave it open and let your puppy be in there.
Absolutely.
Ooh, yeah, I wonder if my new 30-pound bulldog could fit in there. He would love it. I don't know if it can fit a 30-pound dog.
We have a whole other set of rad pet carrying accessories. And so the categories that we love and we focus a lot of attention on are accessory lineups. One is pet carrying. And so we have pet carriers that are all engineered and designed in-house. Another's family biking accessories. The others are commuting, like, commuting to work applications. And then just general utility, like running to the grocery store, kind of haul in 5 bags of groceries back home. And or for commercial applications, right, we have heated really? insulated pizza and delivery food bags we have thousands of commercial customers that use these in business applications. Yeah. So a lot of our accessories are in that vein as well.
What's nice about the accessories is on the bike are pegs, screws, I don't know what you call them, mounts, where all of these accessories, you make running boards, which are really cool. So my Rad wagon has running boards, not pegs. So then when my 2 daughters are on it, they both can put their feet on essentially like a running board that would be on the side of an SUV. That is the secret, right? It's like really easy to zip these on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing we pioneered, is this universal accessory mounting system. So almost every spot where you can mount an accessory on a Rad Power bike has a multitude of things that can go into the slots. And we kind of think those like expansion slots on a PC. And depending on whatever the user needs. So we have front rack mounting points on every single one of our bikes. So you can mount these big durable front racking systems. So you can have gear on the front, gear on the back, and gear in the center console, like you just described.
And the sides, you can put saddlebags, but that obviously makes it harder to have a passenger. But the front one is pretty cool. On the front, you can put a small basket, a giant basket. I don't know what else, but you can put big baskets up there.
Absolutely. Yeah, pizza carrying the devices. You can put stereos and boom boxes, you name it.
Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking about, but I don't know if I want to be that guy. Mike, like the guy who has like, Dire Straits or whatever blasting while they're riding their bike and then everybody has to hear it. Kind of cool in a way if you were going for a ride with a couple of friends, but you got to buy these things in pairs, folks, because as much fun as it is to have an electric bike, you got to buy 2. Because somebody's going to come over and they're going to go for a ride on the bike. You're going to go for a ride on the bike. This is the craziest thing. You're like, you got to buy them 2 at a time because you got to go out with friends on these bikes. They're so much fun.
Oh, I think my job's here is done, Jason. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
I hate to be such a super fan, but I do think how many people who order a bike order a second one? I mean, you've got to have because that was the first thing I did. I bought the bike. I'm taking one daughter out at a time. And then it's like, we want to go too. I got 3 daughters. I got 1 wife. Okay, 2 bikes. One can hold 2, one can hold 1. So now we got the whole family on these things.
Yeah, that's what we find is just, get ready for a life of being an e-biker. And what comes with that is a multitude of bikes and a garage full of them at some point. Because you end up having different bikes for different applications, different members of the family. You might trade in and trade up your rad model over time as well, as you kind of find your life might change and your needs might change for your bike. And so, yeah, we see that's another great part of our business is like we have so much word of mouth, but we also have so many returning customers because once you're an e-biker, you're bit by that sort of rad grin or the e-bike smile, like you said, and you feel like a kid again, and you get to places faster than you do in a car. And it's just
really
the multitude of benefits is just, keeps people locked into that lifestyle. It's I know it does for me.
The key to the whole thing is that missions that would be too far to go on a bike. Like if you got a bike and you go on a dinner, you're like, I don't know if I want to exercise right now. I just want to get dinner, or I'm just taking the girls for ice cream. You mentioned ice cream as a mission. The quick lunch, the ice cream, going to the store. What I find now is some of the missions where I would have used Uber Eats or, Postmates or whatever, I'm just like, you know what? Feel like getting some fresh air. I'll go get us ice cream and I'll bring it back. So I'll just zip down and get the boba or get the ice cream, bring it back for my daughter. It's quicker than waiting on Uber Eats. And I get a little bit of, I still use Uber Eats. Don't get crazy, people. But it's nice to just ride it out there. Hard to raise money for this. I saw you raised a lot of money now, but I mean, investors must have been like, are you kidding me? You want to create an electric bike company and go up against China's like race to the bottom and everybody else. I mean, it's a doggedly expensive place to exist, and the margins are obviously going to be challenged over time. So what was the investment community's reaction when you came out with this crazy idea that you were going to make an American electric bike company?
I started this company, as you know, when I was 15 years old, and this job, as I think of it today, like it picked me, and this is my life's mission. So it's required a lot of grit and a lot of hard work by a lot of people on Team Rad. But all these customers that as we call them, Rad riders, they have propelled us in a myriad of ways. One is all the great product and user feedback. 2 is just coming back to buy again, and so that data has been instrumental in helping us secure some of the best investors in the world. Rad's the first e-bike company on the planet to have kind of institutional investor list behind it. And I think it's a testament to the sort of core economics of the business, and then the long-term trends that Rad is positioned better than anybody on earth around. And so maybe like just walking through a few of those, the largest contributor of greenhouse gases in the United States is transportation.
Yep.
And like I said before, 70% of trips are under 10 miles. An electric car only takes a little dent out of carbon because they're more energy efficient than an internal combustion engine, but they're still 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 pound vehicles. And electric bikes, on the other hand, get 1,600 miles per gallon energy equivalent or so.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is now, if you I have an electric car, I have an electric bike. The times I use gas are limited to but one car we have, which is kind of like our getaway car in case the world goes to hell. And I got like a backup old car just in case.
You just need a solar panel and an outboard battery.
But I'm thinking like Walking Dead type scenario. I want to have both options available. But the people who did your Series A at $1.5 million pre, it was hard to raise money back then. They're sitting pretty right now. Your Series D at $1.5 billion. They're on 1,000 extra right now. Congratulations to the people who backed you.
We don't publicize our valuation, and that's not no, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I do think that the story is quite an extraordinary one. A hardware company, an e-bike business, and a car.
We get the information from PitchBook, which tends to be directionally accurate, but not always.
Yeah. Well, but I can't speak to that. But
okay.
But I think you're right on the trends here. That this is an incredible story in a car-centric world, and it's a people-led movement, right? So you have our investor group. They're users of our products, and
I mean that's the thing. I reached out to you with
transformational nature of these things.
I immediately reached out to you. I was like, I got to find out if there's an opportunity to invest here, but the train had left the station. Let's talk a little bit about the government support that's coming. We are seeing more and more cities obviously have bike sharing. Great. That's a great vote of confidence for what you're doing. Eventually, they might want to use your bikes, I assume. They must have contacted you already. You're too busy being sold out. But tell me what you think of these bike sharing programs and eventually maybe partnering with the city.
We've seen a lot of success with commercial fleet operators using the bikes to deliver food and beverage and groceries and parcels. But we've also seen a lot of success doing sort of community bike lending programs. So there's one that's being stood up now in Oakland that we're really excited to be a partner of. And these are groups that almost act like a e-bike library. So you can rent out a model for a week and use it. And so that's where we're focused, is letting consumers spend time on our products. And we see bike share and the sort of scooter share industry, frankly, that side of micromobility where people will use it to go from, do their last mile trip in an urban environment when they're, visiting a new city or here and there between lunch meetings. We see those as really people coming in the door of micromobility. And as they fall back in love with that feeling of being on electric micromobility, it's silent, it's swift, it's super fun, it's economical. They want to buy their own e-bike and they want to tune it to their life. And so that's where we see ourselves.
So you're not running any of those programs, but if people want to buy the bikes and run it themselves, Mazel Tov, go for it.
Yeah, we focus mostly on rental fleet operators that are in vacation, communities.
What do they rent them for a week? You said that people are now doing co-ops and renting them. What's the average price to rent these things? A week, a day?
This is the most beautiful story. Some of these things are nonprofits and they offer the bikes to people for free. And especially people without the economic means otherwise. And these are the kind of programs we love to support because it's right towards the mission of our business.
That's absolutely fantastic. We're seeing in the Build Back Better plan a lot of infrastructure items related to electric. Obviously, they want to increase the incentive to people to buy electric cars. We've always had a $1,000 to $5,000 tax credit for cars. I think that's going to go up to $5,000 if your Tesla is $7,500 if you're a legacy person, because Tesla pays people more money but doesn't have a union, and the people with a union, I think, get a better deal because Biden's in the pocket of the unions. Putting that aside, there's an e-bike credit of $4.1 billion in the Build Better Act. What impact might that have? Because I think it's something in the lines of $500 or $1,000. Is that right?
It is, Jason. And it's an amazing moment for e-bikes in a national sense, because this is the first time that e-bikes have been provided with an incentive like this. So it validates e-bikes as a primary form of transportation for so many people. More than 2/3 of our customers' primary reason for buying bikes from us is to replace car miles. And so these are the kind of conversations we've been having at their federal level. And it's great to see the e-bike tax credit included here. So you said the sort of total amount of money allocated to this program, but it's just a 30% tax credit for folks that fit within the sort of income tax brackets. And so this starts to phase out at $75,000 of modified adjusted gross income.
Okay, so if you're upper middle class, you don't get this tax credit. If you're under $75K a year, you're a civilian, you're whatever it is, you get a major discount here. We're talking about $900. The bike has to cost less than $4,000, and you get a tax credit of $900. In other words, you get your money back.
That's
so
right.
You pay taxes, you get that $900 back. Now, on a bike like yours, that costs, I think the max you can spend is close to $2,000. If you get some accessories, maybe $2,500. But let's just pick a number, $2,000. Would that mean the bike would go down to $1,100 as you know this bill, or something like that?
It'd be a 30% tax credit.
Oh, okay, so $600.
Yep. So it's a 30% tax credit, and we think it really moves the needle, and it takes a product like ours that's already resonating with people, like I said, from all walks of life. Our bikes start at less than $1,000, but it just takes it to making it that much more accessible. People spend a lot more than that on their cell phones. They spend a heck of a lot more than that on their laptops. And
cell phones $1,200, laptops $1,500, $2,000. I mean, if you think about $4.1 billion, divide that by $300, you're talking about putting 13, 14, 15 million, possibly $1,000 e-bikes on the road. That'd be amazing. How many e-bikes are there in America now? You said you sold 350 or something already?
Yeah. So Rad's a 25% market share in the United States and climbing. Next year we're going to, like I always think about Rad as like a business that's historically more than doubled, sort of triple digit growth every single year. And we've got a lot of supply. We're in stock of 90% of our bikes now. And that'll move to 100% towards the end of the year and moving into January. So we're going to be in stock on all of our rad models going into the new year and hope to be so all next year. That's been the biggest constraint to growth over the last few years for our business. We've always been inventory constrained, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, mid-pandemic, like we are now. And so when the business is in stock and able to keep up with customer demand, then I think we're going to tap out that tax credit faster than the years that it's going to be made available, because that ends at 2025, and we're going to need to re-up on that because e-bikes are going to be flying off the shelves.
It is a bright new future. I am so excited that you're doing this and you've chosen to make it your life's worth, because the joy it brings to people who ride them and what it's going to do for the environment and congestion in cities is absolutely stunning. This is one of the, I'm not a big fan of government interference in markets. However, a little incentive to make the air cleaner and to get rid of congestion, I think we can all agree that's something pretty good to spend a little bit of taxpayer money on. It's an amazing product, sincerely. I met you after being just a huge fan of the product. So if you're listening to me and you want to have a thrill and have a great time riding a bicycle, I give it 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, my highest rating. Rad Power Bikes are absolutely f***ing delightful. I love them. And it's just added a lot of joy to my life. So sincerely, my biggest endorsement. It is just an amazing, amazing product. And I look forward to buying many more in the future as you keep creating better and better products.
Wow. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the support of the e-bike revolution. So I'll see you out there on the roads.
It does actually feel like a revolution. And you can see it too, because when you pass by somebody, because I've passed by people with Rad Power Bikes or even other ones, the Super 73, whatever, Bad Move. There's so many great players in the space that you're doggedly competing against. But you're all really part of a revolution to just get some more cars off the road. And for the love of God, if you're running a city and you just have to go, I'm sure you've been to the Nordics, but you've been to Denmark and you've driven a bike there, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we have an office in the Netherlands. So
okay.
Yeah, we ship to 28 countries there. So yeah, absolutely.
And describe for people what it's like to drive a bicycle in the Nordic countries. I mean, it is completely different than America.
Yeah, you come back and you start to not have car blindness anymore. So in the US, you just get so used to seeing cars everywhere. And when you come back from the Nordic countries, you realize that there's clearly been a better way all along.
They literally, when you're in Denmark, along the water, they don't put cars. They put a beautiful wide promenade, and they give half of it to pedestrians and half of it to bicyclists. And you can get from point A to B, in most cases, with never interfacing with a car. And that's really what we have to look at. When you're looking at a modern city, whether it's Brooklyn or New York, Manhattan, Miami, we should be looking for areas, whether it's, on the beach or, taking streets that are normally for cars and just no cars on that street, 0 cars and 100% bicycles. That's the way to make this revolution happen, is to just make it, because the one concern people have in the United States, it's a very valid concern, is having to share the road with insane cars that are giant, with people who are, doing their makeup, eating a slice of pizza, or texting. It's crazy that we do not have protected bike lanes everywhere. But who's doing the best job as a city in the United States with protected bike lanes?
E-bikes have been growing really fast every year. Like I said, pre-pandemic, post, all that, or mid-pandemic here. But bike infrastructure really got a huge acceleration through the pandemic.
Yeah. Because
streets started getting taken back again by people, and local governments were doing it because of health mandates, and so turning in, like you have, I think you call them safe streets or slow streets in San Francisco.
Streets, yeah.
And in Paris, they shut down a ton of infrastructure. We saw sales grow multi-100% just over a few months there as they started shutting down more streets there to car traffic.
Ah, that's fantastic.
So it has been a huge
safe
accelerant.
Streets and bike lanes induce purchase of the product. It makes total sense. And for cities, they just have to have the chutzpah to realize if you build it, they will come. That's what happens. It is a specific concern. The first thing my wife said is safety, safety, safety. That's it. You can have the kids on this. Are you riding on roads with cars? I'm like, yes, I'm right. That there are only roads with cars in America. Bike lanes only. But I know the bike lanes, and we just have to take this to another level. Just like we're shutting down certain streets to make outdoor dining, it's delightful. Just do that in every possible city. If you're voting or you're in office, this is a quick way to stay in office and get more votes. Everybody loves a good bike lane. It's fantastic. It really is, isn't it? I mean,
it is. It's totally non-controversial. The local businesses along those promenade, they do better.
They do better.
More. So it's as simple as that. I mean, we've been giving all this space away to cars for free. All these years, you can fit, I think you can park 16 bikes in the same place you can park an SUV. And so it's, it's just like our city streets have been taken over like this. But one thing that's always been really surprising to folks is how many of our customers are in the suburbs and in rural areas. Because the city, you might have a subway you could jump on, right? You could maybe walk to your destination.
A bus.
But in the suburbs, they've just been designed with sprawl and disconnection. And so that's where an e-bike is. We've seen some of the biggest growth for our businesses in the burbs and in rural areas where they don't have bus systems, where things are designed disconnected.
All right, everybody can follow Mike on Twitter, MikeRadBaugh. He's active on the Twitter, radpowerbikes.com, and just go buy one. Trust me, just go buy one. They're great. All right, it's the end of the show. Both this episode of this podcast and of season 3 of Secession. Everybody's been watching it. Great show. Really, my goal for 2022 is to get cast in Secession as a late stage, like Kotu, TPG, whatever, Masayoshi-san, SoftBank. I want to be like a late stage VC working on a project with Kendall, and then just absolutely be like the worst example of a late stage investor in the world and just totally cause chaos with Kendall on some transformative investment. But let's talk about the season finale, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think this has been an absolutely fantastic season. And I'm very, very excited to play a VC on next season. We should start that just as a rumor. So our producer Nick has mapped out a storyline. Producer Nick, and you tell me your storyline for season 4 with me written in, and then I will give my recap of the final episode. But okay, pitch me on this.
All right, so let me just back it up for a second. The reason I think this would work is because there may be no other person in the world that understands like peak apex douchey VC than Jason does, because he deals with founders, early stage founders, raising money, 7 of them, constantly all year long. And he hears the best. And in fairness, a lot of the stories are great. A lot of venture capitalists are really, really nice people. Take the time, majority. Yeah. But he also hears all of the horror stories, all of them. You know them all.
Yes.
Right. And you've dealt with it yourself, right? Yes. You tell the story about being in a meeting and someone's on their phone and you stop and you're like, hey.
Yeah, a guy was on his BlackBerry during a meeting for Mahalo.com, and I just stopped the presentation because he was under the table using his BlackBerry. And I was like, well, this is lame. I flew up here and can't even get through a 10-minute presentation. Crazy.
Yeah. So in a weird way, this was kind of the role that you were born to play.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, I deal with this all the time. Yes.
So, all right, here's how I think it should go, right? So season 4 starts, and I'm not caught up on season 3 yet, but I know generally what happens, broad strokes. So there might be some things that don't make sense here, but whatever. So early in the season, Kendall hears about all the money that's being poured into venture capital over the last couple of years, right? It went from the low billions to now hundreds and hundreds of billions, approaching $1 trillion over the last decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's now severed ties from Logan. He needs to do his own thing. He wants to make his own name. And he's like, I got to get in on this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And he's considering, should I try and raise an early stage fund? Should I try and go late stage? What should I do? So he calls his friend from business school.
Got it.
Enter Jason. Jason. Yes.
Love it.
The apex predator of VC douches is how this character is described in the writing room. The apex VC douche. Jason, so Kendall calls you and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a firm. I don't know, early stage or late stage. And you're like, dude, early stage is for the birds. Late stage is easy money. Everybody does the diligence for you. You make all the nerds that work for you, check off diligence boxes. You just throw in 25 million. And then 2 years later, you flip it and you dump it on some stupid retail investors. He's like, it's the easiest job in the world.
Easy money.
Easy money. Easy money.
Why would you put 10 years of effort into this? Like, you could just put 10 months.
Who cares? Who wants to work with early stage companies anyway? They're just a waste of time. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many of them.
Why would you work with somebody with 100 customers when you could work with somebody with 10 million?
Right. He's like 2x, easy 2x, flip it, no problem. easy 8x, whatever they're going for. So your character convinces him that right now, the way the market works, paying 50 to 100x revenue or more for a SaaS company is going to print money, right? That's the state of the market right now. That's what we're paying. Who cares? You see Tiger Global, who gives a shit, whatever. That's what we pay. Then you take a meeting together, and the meeting scene is like, you are legitimately the worst person on the planet. And everyone is like, oh, you're interrupting the founder. You're just like, you're on your phone. You're not even paying attention. You're like showing him memes. You're like, dude, you see what happened? You see Zion? He gained all this weight. Oh my God, what an idiot.
Yeah.
So the founder's
suggestions
sweating
for the product.
Awful,
why don't you raise the prices? Why don't you fire your bottom 10% of customers?
Yeah,
you're like, you do this with half the number of employees?
It's like a SaaS enterprise software company. Like, have you thought about integrating Web3 to this at all, or no? Are you guys not thinking about that yet?
Absolutely.
Just the worst, right?
Terrible suggestions.
So that's like early-ish on in the season. Then in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the season, something's happening, right? Something happens to Kendall where, he's trying to show this off against his dad, right? He's trying to prove to his dad, hey, look, I started this thing on my own. Look at this deal I did.
We're up 5x.
Right. Our deal already got marked up.
We made more money than Waystar made this month. In 1 month, I made more money with one investment than Waystar what is it? ACN? AVN?
Waystar Royco?
No, what's their Fox? They call it AVN or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. We're up. Right. And look how low
I made
margin.
more money on paper than AVN made this month.
Right. I own 10% of the software company, 90% margins. Your margins are what on your Fox 9%, News?
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. You're a loser, Dad. This is how new money's made. Something like that. Right.
Yep.
And then a few episodes later, if you turn out, the company's getting probed by the DOJ for lying to investors. And then the market starts correcting, and then all their public comparable, kind of like what's happened over the last 4 weeks, all the public comparables start going to
like
tank.
A Zoom level compression. Yeah.
Yeah. And he already did the deal. So he paid, whatever, let's call it 75x, top line sales.
But I sold all mine in secondary.
So they have to do a down round. Now Kendall, they're asking Kendall for intros to raise a down round. They're like, we got to cut the valuation in half.
Yeah.
And then somehow the company would have to be somehow tied into like ad sales or some kind of platform like that. Waystar Royco acquires the company for 10
cents on the dollar. Logan always
that
wins.
He invested in.
I've never seen Logan Roy not win. I've never seen him
lose. That's how it ties up.
But the even better part, I'll punch it up, is this late stage VC clears his position off of Kendall marking it up. So when Kendall marks it up, he sells his piece to Cotu in an LLC. Yeah. And he says, listen, I just always like to take some chips off the table.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Exactly. This is all fair. And he's like, well, I locked in my win. I sold 80%. I kept 20% as idiot insurance. So I'm good.
Yeah. And it turns out that the guy, and it'd be great too if Kendall didn't know, but it turns out the guy also has an early stage fund. And he led the A while he was telling Kendall that early stage is for morons, right?
Or he took his money and he bought options in Roystar. Knowing that, he's like, and I took the money and then I just bought options.
I know your dad hates you and he wants to spite you. And then,
I knew your dad was going to, I flipped my investment in this dog into Royco because your dad's a killer. He's always, your dad doesn't lose. I think it's great. All right. Good job. Somebody can clip this and send it to them. And
Adam McKay.
Send it to Adam McKay and see if I can get
Adam McKay. You have my number.
Walk on. You have the number. He'd be in the writer's room. Also, so for people who didn't see, I have a couple of notes about the ending. This was basically a mirror, for those of you who don't know, of Rupert Murdoch. And what did Rupert Murdoch do with his kids and James Murdoch being a really smart son who was possibly going to be the heir apparent, but I think Murdoch just decided to sell everything to Disney. This was kind of the same moment where Logan Roy was like, listen, I could give this to my kids, but there are people like Disney who really know what they're doing and are playing at the top of the game. That is in the best interest of the shareholders. So in all these kids who basically prove that they don't know what they're doing, like each one this season, Kendall went for the throne and he didn't kill the king. Shiv tried to get a board seat at the annual meeting. She failed. And then Roman tried to do this deal with the merger and be his dad's right-hand man, and he failed. And then all three of these failure dipshit kids then decide that they're going to collectively use their total incompetence to try to take on Logan Roy, who is a self-made man who built this from nothing And he's got Jerry and Frank and all of these people around him who've been through the war with him. And they're all like, oh, but you should do this because we can outvote you. And he's like, yeah, no, I talked to your mom, and Tom is loyal to me, not his wife, Shiv, who's not loyal to him. And all of a sudden, they are totally neutered, and all they get is their, whatever, $2 billion each, and Logan gets his $5-6 billion, and he wins again. And it's the perfect time to sell. And Logan wins again. It's like the perfect arc. They actually thought, each of these deranged kids thought that they had, because of their silver spoon and because of their inheritance, because of what was gifted to them, some amazing ability to take over this company and run it. When in fact, what they should do is just take the bag and run with that and go do whatever they want in life. And the other observation I had about this is they're so miserable that no matter how epic their lives is, and this show does an amazing job of accurately showing the life of the ultra wealthy, where they do not care about their $50 million apartments or their jets or their helicopters. They're on huge lakes. They're in Tuscany. They don't care. They're miserable while being in the greatest locations that all of us watching this would be like, if I could go on that vacation once in my life, I'd talk about it for the next 20 years. You guys hear me talk about the time I stayed at the Aman Hotel in Tokyo. You hear me talk about, times I've gotten to, I went to Tuscany this summer and I was able to borrow Chamat's beach house or whatever. It was a rental or whatever, but he let me use his place in the beach in Italy. We've been public about that. It was very nice. And for me, I'm just pinching myself. This is incredible. I can't believe a kid from Brooklyn got to have this. These people are not having that experience at all. They're miserable. They don't care. And what amazing performances. I think across the just entire spectrum, those 4 kids being miserable and then getting nothing. My prediction for next year is that this deal somehow comes off the rails, the deal that they closed with the Gojo deal. Something happens and the Gojo deal unwinds, or the Gojo CEO, maybe the Gojo CEO was cooking the books. Maybe he gets arrested. He dies in a helicopter accident. Something happens and somehow Logan Roy gets control of the company again, and then everything's back in play. Or maybe the kids splinter and they go start buying assets and they get their money and they start building things. But this has got to be no more than a 5-season show. I think the way this has been going, the stakes get higher every year, and it's got to unravel. I hope they don't do this for 10 years. I think they just have to absolutely end this show in 5 seasons or less. That's what I think. And that final scene where Logan Roy is explaining to them that they're just pedestrians is absolutely fantastic. And then there's this other scene when he's with that Skarsgård character who played the clown from It. What incredible, where they both kind of respect each other because they are just marauding capitalists. Those two on screen together, and he just realizes this is in the best interest of all shareholders, especially me, to cash in my chips. And that they are just really just total morons. It's absolutely amazing. And shout out to Comfrey and Greg and some of the other supporting cast who just were amazing as well. I'm a big fan of the Red Scare podcast, and Dasha did a great job. And that kid Greg is just awesome. But Tom is the GOAT. I thought Tom was absolutely amazing. And I also love the guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He had a great scene in this final episode where it's so important for him to have been the firstborn son. And then obviously, Connor, just amazing. He finally got his flowers in this episode where they gave him a great scene because he's just been great in the show, but they never really focused on him enough. He got a really great scene. And Jeremy Strong after that New Yorker profile where he's just like some crazy method actor, and they kind of were sort of signaling that nobody likes to work with him because he's too intense and insane. And he thinks this is a Shakespearean drama and not a comedy or a dramedy. And that he's kind of like clueless or whatever. I don't know what's true of that or what's not, or why that story dropped at this time. But Jeremy Strong gives the amazing performance when he breaks down and just confesses that he's a murderer and he could have saved that kid, or maybe he couldn't have. And Then Roman comes in and starts making jokes. Now I know why I couldn't get a gin and tonic. And Shiv's just like, you ruined my wedding. He's like, they don't care about the person who died trying to score drugs for this degenerate billionaire heir. And what a great show. I know it's unrealistic. I know, whatever. It's a bunch of white people acting insanely privileged or whatever. But I think it's like a great late stage capitalism moment and the end of media as it speaks to the death of the American entrepreneur in the media space. It speaks to the death of secession and inherited wealth. That really is a theme here, is that the concept of being born on third base and getting this incredible inheritance and these businesses, they just can't survive. Not the media business and not the next generation. So this whole idea that the next generation gets to nope. There are disruptors. There are entrepreneurs out there who are going to build better businesses like the Goju guy, or any other entrepreneurs they show on the show, or capitalists. The strongest survive in entrepreneurship. So I just love it as an entrepreneurial show. The acting is top notch. The writing is top notch. I know it's unrealistic at times. The scenarios are unreal, but they do seem to get a lot of nuances right about, where they're going, how they're traveling, the clothes they're wearing, what matters to them. The whole scene with the bunny rabbit and feeding him a bagel, like that is like crazy rich people with, sending their concierge doctor to take care of a rabbit. Like that's just perfectly on brand and amazing. What a great show. Congratulations to everybody involved. If you haven't watched it, I'm sorry for spoiling it, but it's sort of like any of these great shows like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, where I think it's just like some great wine you've had before, some great restaurant, you got the chicken parm, or, you got the ribeye there before, and you could go back 10 times and get that same Peking duck and be just as happy as the first 9 times. Great job. And, what do you think of it? Mention me on Twitter or Instagram. What was your favorite part of it? And if you, by the way, in this day and age, I'm giving you 48 hours on the spoilers. I'll tell you on the show if I'm going to talk spoilers. I'll put it at the end. But just on Twitter and everything else, you got 24 hours, 48 hours, and then everything's out. Stay off Twitter. When I want to watch a Knicks game, I don't open Twitter. I have scores off. If you don't want to get spoiled with these big season finales, whether it's Billions or this or Curb, just stay off social media, okay? The end.
Did you read the whole entire profile on Jeremy Strong?
I didn't read the whole profile.
Okay.
I read like half. I was actually listening to it. Autumn, which was a company I wanted to invest in, AUDM, got bought by the New York Times, I think. They have professional people read whatever the big features are.
Oh, wow.
And so at the top of the New Yorker page, they had that where you could play it. So I started listening to it while I was working.
It was, so I thought the writer did an amazing job, balancing it where it was very like, it took Jeremy Strong very seriously. And he's like, he's almost Daniel Day-Lewis incarnate, right? Like did you read the part about?
And he studied all those actors. Yes.
And he like wrote him a letter.
Actors like Dustin Hoffman. Yeah.
And Daniel Day-Lewis, like he would stay outside of his, he became his assistant on one shoot for.
He got on the sets of those people. Yeah.
And he was outside of his trailer all day, all night. Whatever you need, Daniel, I'll do it for you right away. And Daniel Day-Lewis wrote him this amazing note, like, you're the future, whatever. And he wouldn't talk about it because obviously Daniel Day-Lewis is a very private person. But then he also like, there were these little hints all throughout the article where, and someone had a quote, like, it's impossible to tell if Jeremy Strong is like the next Daniel Day-Lewis person that is like, he's just about that life. Like he's acting as his life, or
he's going to be a method actor. Do not let anybody else on the cast see me until we do the scene.
Yeah,
like, that's how intense they are. Like if I happen to walk by somebody in makeup, you the whole thing. You me, and I can't do my performance.
Yeah. So, but the writer kind of also like there was these little nuggets where he kind of might be insinuating that he's sort of faking it, and he's actually what he really is like the best networker of all time. Because then later in the article, the guy mentions the person who wrote it mentions that Jeremy Strong gave him like a list of names to contact.
Yes.
And was just like, oh, and it's all, and then he's like, and the writer's like, yeah. And 2 days after I started the profile, I got a text from Matthew McConaughey saying, oh my God, Jeremy Strong, hardest worker ever, best guy ever. And he's like, that never happened. Like, that's weird. So he kind of like, I don't know. I thought he towed the line really well, where he's like, he is this like crazy obsessed method actor, but he also like really knows how to play relationships.
He wants to be known as the crazy, like, so he's like PRing himself, which by the way, Kendall in this last episode, spoiler alert, it's not a major spoiler. He said, he's like, I think I'm just going to document dump all this stuff onto my Insta, and Vanity Fair is working on a story with me. And then Comfrey comes and she's like, well, it's kind of more like the PR person, kind of like, well, it's more kind of like we're kind of floating ideas with Vanity Fair. They're not really reaching out to us. And it's like, oh yeah, these guys are so desperate to be relevant for their inheritance that they're actually calling Vanity Fair and trying to stir stuff up and like.
Yeah. And I thought you made a good point too. Like I think Succession is at the point where, and very few shows hit this level where you don't even care what the plot is anymore. You just want to see everyone hanging out.
Yes.
Right? Like The Sopranos hit that note, right? You don't even care what happens. You just want to see Paulie and Silvio.
If they're at the Bang, if they're at the poker game, it's going to be great.
Like it doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
It can be about anything. And I feel like, there are shows where the plot, like Game of Thrones never really hit the point where you want the characters hanging out, right? No. It was kind of all about the plot. But Succession is like, it doesn't even matter what the plot is. It could be anything. You're just like, yeah, I'm in. I just want to see everybody hanging out.
No, like we're going to a wedding to Tuscany. It's like, awesome.
Can't wait.
I mean, well, and then it's also like they're in the back of a limo. They're on the jet in 3 different cabins and different things. That was also like a very cool note. I've been on a lot of private jets, obviously, and like when people are super baller, what's up? Like there are ones that have one cabin, right? You have 4 seats in the front. You got the shared table, and you got a bathroom, right? Okay, starter jet, 12 seats, whatever. Then you got one that's got like the 4 seats in the front and the captain's chairs, and you got the table and the couch for like eating a meal, and then you got a cabin in the back with a door that closes, and that's like typically a bed. Then you got the ones that have 3. So there's like one seating room, then there's like another seating room, and then there's a bedroom. And then there's the ones that have 4. And one's for the crew, one's for security, the assistants, the nanny, whoever. Then there's like the passengers, and then there's the principal. And so, when Logan Roy is traveling, he's like, you guys go up there. We're going to be in this cabin, security and my assistants in the first cabin. And they're walking between, like that little nuance. There's somebody who is this life, who's telling them it needs to be 4 cabins. Yeah. Logan Roy is not on a 2 or 3 cabin. He's on a global. He's on, this level of plane. It's got to have 4 cabins because the discussion of the kids is happening in one. Logan and his, business partner or whatever is in one. And then the assistants and the nannies
That's
and
incredible.
Dogs are in the other. It's pretty, like that level of detail is just extraordinary that they get right. Or like when they went out to the Hamptons house this season, Amagansett or whatever, like Amagansett, whatever, like, and they're going out to this house and they got to go there. Like that's actually a real house that was sold for like 75 million. That's got like whatever amount of beachfront, and they're going on a hike. And then some chef has set up a lobster bake. Like I've been to I've been to Nantucket and Cape Cod. Like a lobster bake takes, like 24 hours of planning. It takes 10 people. They're setting up, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to, and they just like stumble upon this table like it's nothing. It's like they spent $10,000 setting up a lobster bake at the end of a 2-mile hike. Yeah. They stop there. They don't even eat anything. They just have like a glass of wine. They barely touch it, and then just like all gets thrown away. And you're like, the poor person in me, or my poor, thinking is always like, oh my God, they just wasted $10,000 on a clam-baked lobsters. There's like 5-star Michelin chef. All these people had to carry tables out there and set all this up, and they don't give a They just throw it away. Who cares? Not my problem. It's a rounding error. It'd be like you throwing away a chicken sandwich like you ate. You were like, I don't feel like the chicken sandwich. Like I can't throw away a chicken sandwich. I still I'm like, you got to save that, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
Those are the notes that the show absolutely nails.
Yeah.
Of conspicuous consumption. And I think it's also kind of like the end of the white guy, white family, media company. Like there is something, Connecticut, whatever.
Great Neck, Long Island,
it's like
East Egg, West Egg.
I think that's been a criticism of it, of like, oh my God, it's all these white people. It's like, yeah, and then they have like the New York Times was going to merge with them in that second season. And they were like a bunch of white people, but they were like super liberal. And they're like the Fox. And it's sort of like the Schulzbergers and the Murdochs considering a merger. And it's like, it's like all these decrepit old white, rich, heiresses and heirs, and they all just got handed this like dying empire, and they're just like totally circling the drain with it. Absolutely great season. And shout out to I don't know if you watch this podcast, but there's a podcast called The Watch. And they did a great job this season of just every night doing a show where the showrunner and this other guy who is just a pop culture genius, the two of them. So folks are always asking me for a recommendation, but Chris Ryan and Andy Greenwald.
Andy Greenwald, yeah.
Andy Greenwald is like actually makes TV, so he actually can talk about. And if you listen to it, a lot of my observations are going to be cribbed from them, but also stuff that I've been reading I got so into the show, I was like reading all the recaps and people talking about it on Twitter. But they do a great job. This kid Chris Ryan is he's kind of like the version of me as a moderator.
Chris Ryan is unbelievable.
I think Chris Ryan, I would like to meet Chris Ryan at some point because he's been doing pods for a long time. And I kind of feel like the two of us have a similar podcasting style where he's really good at getting the most out of Andy Greenwald. And then he adds his, piece to it. But they do.
And lots of impressions too.
He does impressions. Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
I just like, I have to say Bill Simmons and his internal squad for The Ringer, they really have perfected the hot take 2-man game, pick and roll, and I didn't even know they had one about TV. But I listened to The Watch after some of the Mandalorian, and they did Succession really well. And then shout out to my friend Kara Swisher. She did the official podcast, which was good, but not as good as The Watch because she had to do the official HBO one. So I hope she secured the bag and they paid her $1 million for it. And she got access to some of the cast and whatever. So that was good. But the takes weren't as good because I think they can't be as critical because it's the official HBO one. Or,
yeah,
she needed to be paired. She's such a great interviewer. She loves the show, but she needed to be paired with an independent TV critic for the entirety of the arc. So that was my criticism of that podcast, was they should have just paired her with an Andy Greenwald or somebody who could independently kind of hit at it. But that's the problem when, the person who makes the product then does the post show. Insecure has been doing this wind down after WINE, like wind down, but wind down. And that's interesting. It's like this whole trend, but I like the independent people who do it. I'd like to do that at some point with the All In crew or something after something. I don't know what we would do. What would we do, Nick? After what could we all get together?
Congressional hearings.
Maybe they're long.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
Okay. Congressional hearing. I wish there was something that was like the Super Bowl of what we do. There is no Oscars or Super Bowl of what we do. I mean, if Steve Jobs was doing a keynote, that would be it.
Yeah.
But there's not. So, yeah.
No, and I almost think that the part of the why All In's cool is that you guys don't care about there's no, I think that you all should think that the show is the Super Bowl of your industry. That's what it's becoming, at least once a week when it comes out, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were 45 as the peak I saw this
That's
week.
how I want you all to think. I want you guys to think that this is the Super Bowl of our, every week.
I do. I take it seriously. I don't know if you saw the comment. The top comment on the YouTube was just that I did a great job moderating this week. And I was like, I think it's not that my moderation's getting better. I think you get credit for your edits because I know you're editing to make things easier to hear when we all start talking at the same time. So shout out to producer Nick, the fifth Beatle on the All In pod. The thing I would say is I've been working with them offline and saying to Sax, here's why I'm interrupting you. You're going too long and it sounds like a monologue. And if I let you go on a right-wing tirade and I don't represent the other side of the opinion, you're not being challenged. So let me challenge you. And it's not an interruption. You're just doing 6 points. You got to do 1 or 2 points so we have a reasonable chance. And then Chamath is now and Friedberg are becoming the masters of saying, hey, I want to build on something Jake House said. Hey, I want to build on something Sax said. I want to build on something. I like Chamath's point from 2 episodes ago. In other words, showing interest in the other besties' insights is when things get really good, I think. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I love last week I told you all this, but I thought that the better.com layoff segment was the best like if someone had to ask me what is this show, I would just give them, because it started funny, like making fun of how
poorly he did
like,
it.
Yeah. Terrible job. And then it got into, sort of like, here's why this happened. And Friedberg was like, I think we should really, and he always does this. He deconstructs things down to like what actually matters here. And he's like, well,
the first
what really
principles.
happened is they were wildly overfunded. And when you're overfunded and it's a hot market, you're pushing all the chips in. And when SoftBank gives you money, a lot of what they're giving you is also growth targets. And to meet those growth targets, you have to really go all in. And if there's a pullback, especially in a market like mortgages, that you're cutting people. And so some of this is an incentive to grow, is due to the incentive to grow as much as it was to, any other normal market thing.
Yeah.
And then saying, Friedberg gave like this advice, like, hey, as a founder, your investors, they don't, especially if it's, one of these, not going to name them, but firms that are throwing 1 million bets out in 2021, they don't care if you're, if you're one of the 9 that go bust, they don't care. They care if you're the one that doesn't go bust, that hits that, 50, 80x, whatever. That's all they care about. But your values are different. You should care about your employees. And what if you go out of business, it doesn't matter to your investor, but it matters to everyone that you employ, right? And then Chamath gave all these amazing stories from Facebook, and that led to the Yuri Milner story. And it was just
the market was compressing and they needed to get money. And then Yuri came over the top and they had taken money from Microsoft. He was given that inside baseball of stuff people have never heard of.
Never. And it was just that, but all of that information was in one segment about a stupid 900 person, and of course that's terrible for the 900 people, but in the grand scheme of things, like who cares? And
yes, it was like a layoff story, right? It became a bigger picture.
Yeah. Right. And the whole reason the story got brought up, because you were like, let's talk about how ridiculous this is. And then it just turned into this like magical, incredible segment that you will not find. You cannot find that anywhere. You're not going to get that anywhere else in the world.
I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I said, listen, I think what's happening in mainstream media is they're addicted to making you scared and outraged. Just like the algorithm. They want to make you scared. They want to make you outraged. Why? Increases engagement. And then if you think about what we're trying to do on the pod, and on All In Pod, we explained it the other week. And we should leave this, by the way, this deconstruction of All In. Let's leave this into the episode, please, because I like it as a segment. I like you being on the show a little more, Nick. You're good on the show, if you don't mind.
Thanks.
What was very interesting was, we were saying, we're trying to teach you how to be an independent thinker. And radically self-reliant is the word I use. That's what I'm always trying to do. I want to give people those insights and make them radically self-reliant. They trust themselves. And I think what's happening is this bifurcation of the commercial media, corporate media, like whatever, it's Fox, MSNBC, New York Times, it's all corporate media. Vox, BuzzFeed, they all exist to make money for shareholders. And the quickest path for them is to try to keep up with the algorithm to get more engagement. So they're in an arms race with Zuckerberg for outrage, for engagement. How do they get it? It could be cancellations, it could be woke, it could be fear, it could be COVID, wall-to-wall coverage, it could be, if there's a riot, whether it's a January 6th riot or looting in San Francisco or a BLM or Rittenhouse, they're going to get you anxious, worked up, outraged to get you to tune in tomorrow night to MSNBC or Fox or anything in between the two. What we're trying to do is to say, here's how to think for yourself. Here's how to be smarter and create things in the world and not be part of that silliness, which it's becoming obvious to everybody what's happening. You're being manipulated to make you outraged to get you to tune in again. And I got absolutely pulled into it during COVID and during the Trump era, because how could you not? It was so crazy and scary. I don't blame people for it, but they're whipping it up. And with that Rittenhouse thing, I wonder in those situations, if we didn't do wall-to-wall coverage of people rioting and going crazy, if Rittenhouse would have left his house with the gun, right? I think people are saying, I want to be part of that. I want to, or some subsection of people are so worked up, they say, I want to be part of January 6th. I want to be part of whatever was happening when Rittenhouse decided he had to go protect himself. So the media is not causing January 6th, but they're not getting people to engage in it more, if that makes sense. I don't know how you feel about that, Nick.
Yeah, and
that's my take on our success.
Yeah, I try and you could just see this like it's a microcosm. But if you look at the titles of the episodes, I try and make them engaging without making them inflammatory, right?
Yes.
For instance, last week, right, we talked about a giant tech stock pullback, or growth stock pullback, if you want to call it that, and kind of what happens when you actually hit. We didn't call it depression, but I think we're going towards a recession in the stock market for the next couple of years.
Recession, whatever. Yeah.
Correction. Sure. Okay. And I think I said, I think in the title it said operating in a downturn.
Perfect.
And I just wanted to make it like not, I didn't want to say like, hey, sell like everything right now.
You didn't say crash.
Right.
You
and
I
just, I try and make it, and I know I'm stumbling here,
I did notice that on 57, you said understanding Omicron.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it like...
You didn't say like Omicron, It was like understanding it. Like, I think that's actually a great way to do it. Tech stocks plummet was accurate. Some people might say, but VC's great resignation, accurate. Jack Dorsey's departure. I mean, we just put the facts out there and that's it. It's enough.
Yeah, and I try and get most of the engaging topics in the title. But if you look at earlier episodes, I was a little bit more inflammatory because I didn't really think about the impact that the show would have now. Right. And I don't want people to look at our title and like, remember, I think I tweeted this, but like all the shows that we were around in like the top 50 shows in America were like, one of them was like, American democracy, is it changed forever? Or
I
like
think one of them was like boobies something. Like,
yeah, but that was funny.
Everybody responded
that's
to
a comedy podcast though.
It's a comedy podcast called like,
yeah, whatever. But yeah, there was like an NPR podcast that was like, is this the end of American democracy as we know it? It's like, okay, like, what are we doing here?
NPR.
Yeah.
Like even NPR's in on it. And I don't blame you. As a producer in media, you're in an arms race for headlines, so you want to do the best you can to get people to the show. I think what we all have to do is like, let's just calm the rhetoric down, calm the fear mongering. I kind of wrote a couple of tweets over the weekend that got a big response. It was like, listen, I don't know if you can pull those tweets up, somebody, but I basically was saying like, listen, we live in like the greatest time ever. We're living twice as long. The opportunity is amazing. I'm just trying to, and I was very specific to say in the United States, like, stop complaining, everybody. Please, I can't take the incessant complaining. And some of the hardship, I'm listening to this hardcore history podcast that my friend turned me on to last week about, it's called like, it's Roadmap to Armageddon. And so I started listening to this over the last week. Like the Nazis during World War II were hopped up on methamphetamine. They weren't sleeping. They were deranged, murder. Can you imagine like you're fighting the Nazis and they're on 0 hours sleep, hopped up on meth? Like Nazis are already crazy. And like we're complaining about Bitcoin 40,000 and like my NFT is down and my DoorDash isn't here. Like buck up, people. Like buck up.
Yeah.
Our grandparents like went to war. And we're already like saying democracy's over and complaining about like nonsense.
Yeah, I think bringing it back to all in, how I would kind of phrase it. I think that specifically our show has a major advantage, and it's the ultimate advantage actually over every other publication on the planet in that we don't need to make money. There's no financial incentive. No. And it's you all do it because you care about impact. And
we like to talk to each other, actually.
And you like to talk to each other. You do it because you like it. And
that was the original idea. Yeah.
Right. And that is the ultimate advantage in that, they need to be inflammatory sometimes. They need to drive people to their website so they can survive. Mm-hmm. None of you are worried about that, nor am I. And it's an advantage that they don't have. And it's kind of an unfair advantage, right? But
yeah, the advantage they have, yes, they have the unfair advantage of, like if you're a tech podcaster who runs events, I'm not going to mention any specific names, but if you're too hard on somebody, they won't speak at your $7,000 ticket conference. So you have to toe this line of access journalism, they call it, where you're not too brutal to somebody so they don't show up. But then you've also got this audience that hates tech. And so you're hating on tech while trying to get tech people to spend $7,000 on a ticket, while trying to get the right person to come and sit down for an interview. And so this access journalism becomes very challenging. Kara Swisher is the best at it. She's like, literally was dunking on Zuckerberg. And she's like, I like Mark Zuckerberg personally. You can pull up her article about Mark Zuckerberg from last week in the New York Times. Her first sentence is how she personally likes Zuckerberg. But she needs Zuckerberg to show up for Code Conference or to be on her podcast at some point. And so she's just very good at managing that access or whatever. But then there's other people who are just pandering, right? and I wouldn't put her in the pandering category, but it does. We're free. I mean, everybody knows we're capital allocators. We are obviously going to talk our books, but we're going to explain it. Here's why I'm long Uber. Here's why I'm long Robinhood. Yeah. Here's why I'm not selling my Square shares.
Well, like last week, another great example of, so you were talking about, Friedberg was talking about low level, low wage, manual kind of, McDonald's, Starbucks jobs starting to go away because the companies can't afford that price anymore and can't run it profitably if they have to pay people $20 an hour. And nobody wants to work that job for that crappy wage anymore, right? And Friedberg brought up how, technology is going to change this. And you say, not to pump anything, but, and you didn't even say the name of the startup, but you said, I have a startup that,
we're talking about Cafe X that's doing robotics or whatever. I didn't want to pump them up. I was just like, they're doing good.
But and you didn't even mention the name, but as you brought it up to make a good point and a good example, that was fair. And that was in line with the conversation. You didn't bring it up out of nowhere. Everyone's like, oh, pump it, dude, pump it, like joking, right? So it's this like, you did it to make a point and a good one, and you got made fun of for it because that's how the show works, and you guys are friends, and that's another thing that really, it's like an all-star team. If we weren't
friends, we wouldn't be able to break chops and stuff like that.
Right.
Yes.
It's like a super band, but everybody actually is really good friends with each other. It's a perfect. I don't know. I love doing it. You say all the time, like you give up your Friday nights for it. I don't care. I love doing it. I really do.
Well, I know the audience appreciates you giving up your Thursday and Friday nights for it over the last year. And, just nobody else could do the edits you do. So
plus, I would just rip it up on Saturdays. So whatever.
Yeah. I'm super pleased with Cafe X surviving the downturn. It was really hard, I think, for companies in the retail space. And they just started, if I just put the Instagram up there, somebody could pull up the Get Cafe X, I think is their Instagram. And we can leave all this in the show, by the way, because I like to give them a little shout out. I like the sort of like show decompression or deconstruction. Check out the Instagram. If somebody can pull it up, and you'll see they've been selling these Colette macaroons at SFO's Terminal 3. And I always said, like, he told me they were like, why are you using the arm in the Cafe X? So can somebody pull up the Instagram? I just posted it in the restream. And the second image is a video, and you can play that image while I talk. I always thought, like people were like, why don't you just do this as like a closed system? And there was like a company, Brigo, and you could just do it all behind the scenes and the cup comes out. Like, those old school coffee ones that you would see in a hospital that would use powdered milk or whatever. And we were always like, we want to use the arm because we want to be able to do anything with it. And one of the things we always knew was food would be really great and taps would be really great. So they have taps, they have food, and they have the espresso machine. So you can really do a lot of interesting things. Like they will take from the tap, some green tea or some kombucha, and then they can put milk froth on it or oatmeal froth on it and make it like a Starbucks thing. But you can only do that if you have an arm working between multiple machines. Obviously, there are other beverages that are super popular right now, like boba. So they could obviously do a boba if they wanted to. They could use a hot chocolate machine. You can do anything with the arm. But this is the thing that has been the game changer. Selling, $10 packs of, the best macaroons in the Bay Area or whatever the best ones will be in LAX or Austin's airport. You can really put really interesting things in there. And then that makes all the ticket sales go up and nobody wants these jobs. So like if you're Dunkin' Donuts or you're Starbucks and you can't get people and the lines are getting, I don't know if you've seen the lines at an airport for a coffee place. It could be 30 people. People just give up. You should just put one of these between every 4 gates in addition to having the Starbucks if people want to go to that, and then boom. So they went to they pivoted to an enterprise model. They run these ones at SFO, but if Dunkin' or Illy or Dean and DeLuca or other people want to run Chock full of Nuts, whoever, any espresso brand, any coffee brand wants to run these and put their name on the front, they'll give you the machine and the software, and they'll be like a hardware as a service provider. So shout out to Get Cafe X. Really, really proud of the team.
Now, when they lease the machines out or franchise the machines, do they still maintain the Cafe X branding?
No, the idea is, we had to put them out there ourselves, because who's going to do this crazy thing over the last 5 years, right? It was like a really crazy idea 5 years ago. Now it's an obvious idea. So we had to come up with something. But now, to pick the locations, operate the machines, and build a coffee brand is a lot of work. There are people who already know how to do that, like totally. Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks and Coffee Bean and
Yeah.
Tea Leaf. Everybody knows.
I'm just saying in terms of branding, like I pulled this picture up. Imagine this with like the pink and orange Dunkin' Donuts colors.
You know, you don't
with
have
the
to
wood
imagine
paneling.
it. I've seen like in decks, all of the different brands with
mock-ups. Yeah.
all
like,
the different mock-ups.
So,
You can imagine
so
this
nice.
could work also for, you know, if you had a club in Vegas or something, or you had
Oh, like making mixed drinks?
Obviously, if you have taps, you could have cider, beers, wines. You could be making coffees with, you know, Kahlua in them. So it's ultimately extensible. And what I was looking for in an investment was something that could do the whole job. And I looked at the salad robots, the pizza robots. They always did 30 to 60% of the job, which is fine. I mean, that's helpful. But I wanted something that would do 100% of the job and be a full stack. So yes, I do think at some point, some coffee brand will put 1,000 of these or two, because you could have 1,000 of these, you know, in between your 5,000 existing locations, right? And then the people at the existing location, like let's say you were Dunkin' at Logan Airport and you were Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, you know, at LAX and whatever in Austin, you know, the Austin, you know, whatever, a coffee brand. Well, you could have the people who are working in the live store have 3 other versions of these, right? Between other gates, like the gate that has nobody, you got to walk a mile to. You put those there. The people then go fill up the coffee beans, fill up the milk. If it breaks, they go clean it, you know? So that's the vision, I think, is filling in. Like, you ever see a Starbucks in the baggage claim area? No. But you could, because you can't fit it, but you could fit one of these in the baggage claim area. So when people are waiting for their bags, you could have one of these there. The Dunkin' person from upstairs could come down and fill the beans. The end.
And there's GPS monitoring on the Cafe X app, right? So if you're like close by a machine, does it send you a notification? Like, I think it would be so cool.
When we had them in, we had 4 of them in San Francisco, and they were just constantly getting vandalized. It was a real problem. Literally,
tough city to have
tough city to reach out.
Yeah.
No, it would give you an alert. Hey, would you like us to order your mocha? Then it would remember your last drink. You say yes, and it's like counting you down as you go there. So it's very cool. So
yeah, like you get a push notification, like, "Hey, we know your favorite drink is this.
Totally,
We'll have it ready in 3 minutes."
That's the at scale vision, and you know, if you just
that would be so dope.
If anybody knows anybody who is looking to build a cafe chain and they have the ability to buy the machine, I think the machines go for $200K, and then it's like I think it's $2K a month to maintain them, or $1,500 for the software. So, you know, these things can do $500,000 a year. So they pay off in just a year or 2, I think, if you have a good location. And then the next 9 years is all profit, basically. And coffee's high margin. So you can really, you know, if you had a campus of some type or you own buildings, I think, you know, you need to be able to sell.
Yeah, it sounds like college makes so much sense.
College would be crazy.
It's relatively safe areas for the most part.
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you only need to sell, I think,
a lot of foot traffic.
If the average ticket size is like $6, you know, between 1 and 2 drinks, then if you have 100 to 200 orders a day, you start to hit $6,000 to $12,000, $9,000 or $12,000, 365 days a year, $365,000. Something in that range makes it highly profitable, like super highly profitable. I think $1,000 a day in orders, you know, 150 orders a day, 100 to 200 orders a day, you just are going to break even to be massively profitable with these.
I wonder who's on the buyer side too for universities. Like, is
they usually outsource the entire thing to one restaurant group because they don't want to deal with it. So that's I think that would be the challenge.
Basically give the restaurant groups the budget? Like, are you dealing with a public university or private university's budget? Because if that's the case, then $250K upfront wouldn't be that big of a deal, right?
I think they put the entire concession out to, in a place like a college campus or a campus like Google, they might put the entire thing out to a restaurant group, like Restaurant Associates or something, and they just do everything, all the coffee stands, all the Ottawalla juices, the snack bars, they'll just do everything for them. So they don't have to worry about it. But then if you have a big venue like an airport, they want to create a marketplace, or you have a mall. You want to create a marketplace where people are competing against each other and paying the highest prices for rent, right? And so they wouldn't just give over the entire mall to somebody to do the food court. They want to have a vibrant marketplace of competitors. And so that's the idea.